Yep, that's very true.
All right. Well, we're getting it 4 minutes past, 5 minutes past. So folks will still continue to join, but we probably should get started here pretty soon, right?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Let me know and I'll take it away. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll even though we've been chatting just like it's the two of us, you know, we still we have lots of people on the line who don't know you as well as I know you. So Victor, who's hosting this for us today, has been a friend of mine for many years, as we've just discovered, about 20 years, when we did a show together in upstate New York called 3 Days of Rain. Beautiful show. And I met Victor, who's been a lifelong friend ever since. And Victor has done many things. He's an accomplished actor and musician, and he's a teacher, and he's been working as a business and life coach now for many years. And he's also an entrepreneur that has his own company called Proscenium. And that's where he focuses on performance improvement for companies in all industries. And I heard that he was giving webinars for different companies about how to present yourself really well over Zoom, since this is the medium of the moment. So I said, oh, won't you please, please, please do one for our folks? And he graciously consented. So now I'm gonna turn it over to Victor, and we can start to record, Cherise, so we can share this with all of the latecomers, and take it away, Victor.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. That's really sweet. That means a lot. It's all true. Someday when we have time, we'll share stories about what 3 Days of Rain was like.
Oh, no.
I won't do that right now. So welcome to Effective Communication in a Virtual Environment. I'm really pleased to be here. So thank you, Laura, for inviting me. And thank you, Leopard, all of you, for making it possible and being supportive. All right, so before we jump into the actual strategies and tactics that I have for you today, I want to take you through what I like to call a mini tech tour. So to point out some of the things and the capabilities that Zoom has, which you want to know about, and which you're also going to want to point out to your audiences and the people that you interact with on virtual in a Zoom meeting. So if you move your mouse up, you're going to see a black icon bar. It could be above your video. It may be below your video. Mine is above the slide. It's at the very top of my screen. On the icon bar all the way to the left, you're going to see a microphone. If you see that microphone and you click on that, you will mute yourself. That means we can't hear you. That's a great thing to have, so that any background noise that's going on with you, it won't get fed into the meeting. Next to the mute button, so actually would everyone make sure that you are on mute if Cherise hasn't done that for the participants already. If you move across next to the microphone, you'll have a little camera icon, and that will give you your video. So if you click on that, you can stop and start your video. So right now, none of you are going to be on video, but I wonder if Laura, if you or Cherise would invite a few people to get on video just to practice turning it on and off.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
There we go. So Cherise, you're going to come on video for us. And I think I see, I think I see Valerie Fontaine on. Valerie, do you want to turn your camera on and we can say hi?
I will turn her on. I did see her and spoke to her, sent her a message. Hold on one second.
There we go.
I'm getting some help. For some reason, it's not giving me the option to do my camera or my video or my. I don't know. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can. Hold on. Okay.
And I have expert help here, and she's not seeing it either, so I don't get what's going on.
It could be the settings. I apologize because it's a webinar.
Yep.
Okay, because all right. So I see where I can mute, but I don't see where I can do anything
Do the
else.
option. Okay.
Well, an LMA member has a PDF out there that I can share. I can email to everyone that's here and who didn't make it as well. And I also have Victor's collateral, so we can send all of that together because the LMA people have set up a great like introductory Zoom like soup to nuts.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's helpful. This is really just a chance for people to try to play with it and see what it's like to click on and off, to get used to the video. Don't worry about it if you can't get on video now. In that icon bar, you'll have your video camera to put your video on or off. It's also a good thing, I'm gonna remind you now, if you do need to take a step away from the camera and you are on, turn it off before you leave. It's always nice to just turn it off so people aren't seeing people go in and out. You'll also notice when people are on video, there'll be a gallery view. There'll be an icon or an option over by the videos, which looks like little squares. If you move your mouse to that, it will click, it'll say gallery view. When you click on that, it may give you all of people in a row. It depends on how many people there are. Or we may be in a grid, kind of like a Brady Bunch, so that it looks like we can all say hi to each other and point to each other. It depends on the configuration. But gallery view is great to have so you can see everybody on screen who's attending when it's a small meeting. The other thing that's important in your icon bar is you're going to see silhouettes. There are a couple of little white silhouettes of people. If you click on that and participants, it'll give you a list of participants. If you scroll down to the bottom, you might find a couple of icons on the bottom. I'm not seeing them on mine. Let's see if they show up. There may not be. But you'll have the option to raise a hand, or you may have the option to maybe click a green check or a red X. And that also lets people be engaged, lets people interact with the hosts or during the webinar in a way that they're not necessarily speaking, but it keeps alignment going while the host is going through the webinar and the session. So you can also keep, you can move across that icon bar. And if you go to the end, you should see an option for chat. Do we have that configured? There is chat. I can see chat. So I'm going to open up the chat. And that's where you can actually type in a response to everyone. All at the bottom, it should say either all panelists or everyone. If you type in a response there, you can type in right now what city you're dialing in from, and we would all get to see that. So I will type in just so you can see, and there you go. So these are really quick options, a really quick tech tour. It's great to go through this at the very start of any interaction so that your attendees, whether it's one person or a few, they know what options they have and they can find ways to interact with you, especially microphone and camera. All right, so let's jump in. Before we actually dive into the strategies of this session, I want to ask you a quick question, and this is something I'm going to have you share in chat. If you would please type in 1 or 2 words that describe how you feel right now. And that could be how you feel mentally, how you feel about virtual communication, how you feel emotionally, it doesn't matter. Just type it in. It's a nice little check-in for us to get to start the session with. I can see some nice responses. Happy to learn. Anxious makes sense, right? There's a lot of anxiety going around. There's a lot of stress, uncertainty, so overwhelmed, I see that, confused. All those things are really true, and all those things have to be taken into consideration. So it's important for me as a host to know that, and it's also important for you to be aware of that. And there'll be another place where I talk about that as a strategy to think about how are you showing up. So you want to give people the chance to think about that and just to check in. So thank you. Thanks. I appreciate being willing to share that. If we think about what our days are like right now, we can think about our work day. And before COVID-19, our work day pretty much might have looked something like this, where we went into an office, or it might have looked something like this, or if your atmosphere was a little bit more relaxed, or if it was really relaxed, it might have even looked like that. Although none of the places I ever worked looked like that when I worked in an office. Maybe Leopard Solutions does, though. That might be fun. But a little bit. Right now, though, pretty much everybody's workday looks a lot like this. It's solitary, you're working from home, you're alone. It might look like this for some people, you never know. I am wearing pants. I just want to make you aware of that so everybody can relax. The reality is, though, that most of the time, when you're working from home, you have loved ones, family around you, your workday is probably going to look a lot like that. So you might have children climbing all over you, you're trying to manage your family, you might have pets, you might have people that need your attention, and you're really trying to show up really well in your virtual environment and show up professionally. So there's a lot to contend with. So because of that, you really want to think about your presence. There's going to be ways to manage, deal with all of that in the environment. And those are the strategies I'm going to take you through. Before we get into that, I just want to give us a chance to think about and define what is the idea of presence. What does presence actually mean? So in thinking about presence, there's a lot of different definitions. I know Laura and I, we always talk about this, because if there's one thing that actors know, it's presence. Presence is a mindful choice. So actors know how to optimize their presence so they can really portray a character and make the greatest impact. And that's what you need as a business leader as well. There's a couple of different definitions. One client I work with likes to say that presence is the ability to connect to the hearts and minds of others. Someone else I know likes to say that presence is how I experience you and how I experience myself around you. My thoughts are, I keep it pretty simple. I like to think of presence this way. It's an authentic, your authentic, energetic connection to us. And by energetic connection, I mean your emotional energy, your mental and intellectual energy, your spiritual energy, your physical energy. And that energy connects to us and we experience it through your behaviors. So if you would please just type into chat if any word or words resonate with you from that meaning. Just type it into chat. Give us a chance to see what might align with you and your thoughts around presence. And as you type in, I'm great. Laura, would you mind reading any of the chats that come through if anything pops out at you?
Sure. I'm seeing that they like authentic. I like that word authentic connection. I like that too. And just, connection.
Great. That is the key, right? It is connection. And it's going to feel a bit wonky because we're connecting through this strange medium that's this little camera through technology. So that's where I think the disconnect comes in. It's not in a room where we experience the energy of the people around us and that energy combines with ours. It's through a different medium. So really the strategies I'm giving you today are all about managing the energy so that your optimum energy comes through the lens and really engages your audience and creates a really positive impact, which is what you really want. So the strategies all come from the world of acting. As Laura said, we met doing a play together. So I will probably always, to my grave, think of myself as an actor, whether I ever do another play or not. So a lot of the work that I do in communication, whether I'm coaching or speaking, it comes from that world because those practices can be used for leaders, they can be used in business. They're really just great everyday practices that we can make use of. There are 5 strategies. The first strategy I'm going to give you is that you want to optimize your set. And when I mean your set, you want to think about what is around you. Now, actors have the luxury of a set designer, they have a cinematographer, they have people lighting them, but we have to think about our set. And our set is going to be primarily three considerations. It's going to be your background and environment, your lighting, and your webcam or camera placement. So look at your background and environment and think about how that might show up. You want a background that's going to enhance your presence, not detract from it, not distract others. You want 3 things. You want it to be clean, you want it to be simple, you want it to be stylish. It's nice if it's a little bit personal, if it has a little bit of your style and your flavor to it, but It needs to be uncluttered. I don't want to see 3 lunch plates, 2 coffee cups, and 3 glasses from the 3 meetings you had all morning. You don't want a pile of catalogs, so I know exactly what stores you're ordering from, or a pile of adult magazines, which are going to be a conversation starter or ender, which you don't want in the middle of an important interaction. You want to make sure, again, that it enhances you. So a few nice photographs are great, simple pieces of art. You can have flowers. It all works, but just make sure it's clean and simple and uncluttered. Lighting. Lighting can be tricky because a lot of people think about, we don't all know about lighting, and there are people who, who are experts in this. And there are 2 simple things you need to remember. One is keep light in front of you. You don't want light behind you. If you are backlit, what you're going to see, if I was backlit right now, all you would see would be a dark silhouette. It would be like watching an episode of America's Most Wanted. You really wouldn't see my face. I would probably just look like a serial killer. And with a bald head, that's really not a good thing either. So backlighting is not good. We won't see you. Keep light in front of you. Natural light is great, but just be aware that natural light changes throughout the day. So you want to be aware that at times it's going to be very harsh. At times it's going to be too dim. If cloud cover comes through, and as I'm glancing at my window, I can see that, it's going to change. So you want to be aware of that. If you have a lamp, put a lamp in front of you. Now I'll show you something with mine. If you bear with me for a moment, I'm going to move something, and you can see that the light on me just got a little bit brighter. So it's a little bit more in my face with a little bit more sheen on my face. So what I actually do is I cover it with a cloth so that it's a little bit warmer. So you want the light to be solid, you want the light to be strong, but you want it to be a little bit warm so that it enhances your features and lights them well. An overhead light is fine, that's also great. Just be aware that, again, any harsh lighting is going to put a glare on your face. And the last piece of optimizing your set is going to be your camera placement. There are a lot of different opinions on this. I was just speaking to somebody who does a lot of hosting for technology in a company I work with called Ariel Group. And there are opinions out there, and the basic one is that camera should be about eye line. It can be slightly above eye line. It can be slightly below eye line. There is an approach nowadays where many people are looking slightly down into the camera, which is fine. It tends to give a psychological association that we're a little bit bigger. It's an enhanced presence. If your camera is too far above your eye line and you're looking up, it almost gives a psychological association that you're diminished, that it's almost like a child looking up at an adult. So eye line is great, and thinking about also how far away should you sit. It's not an exact science. I like to think about it so that it's basically from just above my solar plexus upwards, kind of like a good headshot, so that we can see shoulders, your hands if you're gesturing, and your full face, which is great. Are there any thoughts, or anybody have anything they want to type in about which of these you might need to pay more attention to yourself when you're preparing your set at home?
Well, I do a lot of Zoom webinars, and I think for most people the camera placement is tough. If you're using it on your phone, it's always way too low, and I see a lot of silhouettes with that backlighting. So you really want them to see your face. You really don't want that serial killer look, you know.
No.
So yeah, you do dress your set. I just added this lamp today.
Oh, that's so nice.
For this session.
Lovely,
But
right?
I have lots of natural light here, but it does change throughout the day. In the mornings, I don't need this. I need something else. So it's always, you just have to kind of adjust. But the great thing is you can see yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and here's the other little test. You should try a little Zoom trial, like Laura suggested. Do a little Zoom trial to see what your set looks like. Because the other thing is, you can't always adjust the width and the scope of your lens in the camera. So you want to see, what is your camera actually picking up? It took me an hour and a half to figure out how to get this framed behind me and not get the TV that's a foot to my a foot to my left, and the curtain that's stapled to the window frame to the right, so it's blocking out the sunlight. Like, you know, so you have to play with it and figure it out. And trial and error. But it really does help when the background is clean and uncluttered, and we can pay attention to you. So
and we just had a couple of comments come through. For a business Zoom, I would not use a virtual background because it doesn't work all that well, for one thing. So there's always sort of like a line around you as you're moving around. So I would sort of skip that for that. And what I do about placement, so I'm looking sort of at least towards where I know the camera is, you can get it out of the full screen mode, and you can place the people that you're talking to right where the camera is. So your eyes are naturally gonna, you know, rise up to that level. So that's just a little trick. Like right now, I'm not really looking at the camera. I'm looking at Victor's picture, but it probably looks like I'm looking at the camera. So it helps you remember that during a session.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's also going to be very tempting to watch everybody. So that's a great point, because depending on where your videos are showing up, if I start watching people, I might look like that. And right now, to you, it may look as though I'm not paying attention at all.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah.
I saw, you know, well, broadcasters are now doing all of their stuff from home. So they're on WebEx, they're on, you know, Zoom. And I saw one on Sunday where, you know, this fantastically intelligent man, Paul Krugman, looked like a zombie the entire time he was on television. It's like he's been on TV for many years, but he didn't know what to do. He was looking at the pictures of other people and forgetting that he was on camera, so it just looked disastrous. So you have to bear that in mind.
Oh yeah, that will happen. I'm going to talk about that when I talk about eliminating distractions, because forgetting that you're actually on camera, the camera keeps running, so it's going to pick up everything. So that's another thing. And the other big thing that I want to mention is the hardest thing is it's psychological right now for all of us, because there's a disconnect. If we attend a Zoom meeting and we're in a business environment, if we were at the office, there would be a psychological platform or foundation in our mind already that says, well, this is business, I need to conduct myself in a certain way. But we're home and we're mixing the worlds. So right now it feels odd, and you have to think about, what does my environment look like? And is it professional and is it business? And there are people around. So that's what's creating some of the tension and the anxiety. It's just, again, practice and keeping these things in mind. Now, honestly, you can clear out. The other thing to think about is this little set that I'm talking about only needs to be the width of your camera lens. That's the Hollywood trick. You know, you don't need to see, as I said, the curtain stapled to the window or my kitchen to the left, which is cluttered and a mess right now. So right now it might look like it's peaceful and uncluttered. That's all you need if you can clear out that kind of a space in your home. So that's before, and here's the other thing I want to mention. These strategies, I'm going to do them in an order. I welcome you to try them in this order, but you can mix and match them any way you like. That's getting everything ready well before the time you're going to sign in, you're going to get on Zoom, and you're going to join the meeting. The next strategy is going to be, and this is something actors are really good at, is you want to make sure you ground and center yourself, because that's going to affect the way that you show up. So grounding and centering yourself is going to involve three things. You want to make sure that you refuel, you recharge, and you reset. Refueling, it may sound mundane, but please don't skimp on sleep. Don't skip on good nourishment. Don't, you know, poor food, poor nutrition, poor sleep is definitely going to show up in your eyes, in your skin. It's going to show up in your ability to be focused. You don't want to be scattered. You don't want to seem sluggish. So all those things really matter. Worst of all, if you're really, I mean, and this has happened to me, if I haven't had time to eat, I find my answers and my responses in an online interaction are shorter and shorter and crankier than I really want them to be. It's kind of like, Laura, do you remember the Snickers commercial with Willem Dafoe and Marilyn Monroe's dress?
I do indeed, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like, have a Snickers, you're actually more yourself. So you want to make sure you're nourished, you have sleep and rest. You want to recharge, and recharge means move throughout your day. Your bodies need to move. So get up, get outside, take walks. It's great to exercise. You can't let this time mean that you're going to be sedentary. Make sure that you can space your meetings if possible with a little bit of time in between. If you don't have a lot of time in between, get up out of the chair, stretch, at least stretch your arms. You can do isometrics. Even if you're in the chair, put your hands as though they're pushing away the webcam, hold it, push for 3. You can hold out the walls on either side of you, push for 3. You can do that to the ceiling above you, just getting your muscles activated, some shoulder rolls. It just recharges your body because, again, it gives us kinesthetic energy that's going to come through the camera lens, which is what we want.
Yeah.
And lastly, you want to reset. And reset means that actors want to show up no matter what the emotion they're going to portray. They want to make sure that they themselves are ready and calm and relaxed so they can access it. And you want to be ready and calm and relaxed. So there are some that I can recommend. There's one called Headspace. There's one Insight Timer, another called Stop, Breathe, Think. These offer meditation guidance. They're little meditations or guidance around stress, around anxiety, some for sleep, some for body and movement. And if you can't meditate, one of the quickest things that you can do, and I'm going to ask you to try it right now, is just do some breathing. So if you put your feet flat on the floor, drop your hands into your lap, and you can put your eyes down. You don't have to make contact with the camera. You don't have to watch me. Make sure your shoulders are relaxed. Let your body sink into the chair. And I'm going to ask you to just do 2 rounds of breathing. Each round, I'm going to ask you to inhale through your nose for 3 seconds and exhale through your mouth for 6 seconds. Just do that twice. Okay. It's a little quick hit. If you've done the breathing, if you've had a little hit of a reset, type into the chat how that makes you feel, if that's helped reset anything for you, if you feel any different than you did at first. One of the things I do want to make sure I do touch upon, I just got a note, I'm seeing centered, calm, great, relaxed. One of the things I want to touch upon is emotional intelligence. So there was a question around that and emotional intelligence coming through the screen. One of the things, that's the reason I like to start with a check-in. And I also like to do that for myself, because if I don't know where I'm at emotionally, then that's definitely going to be picked up by the camera. So you need to start with level 1, and level 1 is identify how you feel emotionally right now. Know how you feel before you begin the virtual interaction. Check in with other people, that's level 2. Where are they at emotionally? Understand if there's a lot of anxiety showing up in the room, a lot of stress. You may need to put off the agenda for a few minutes and say, what's going on? What do people need right now? What would help you eliminate some of that stress? Because people can't really move forward if they're in a different emotional place.
Yeah.
The other thing about emotional intelligence is, remember that the camera picks up a lot, but we're missing the energetic connection. So there are nonverbal nuances that we don't get. So you have to literally substitute and check in with people and say, are you with me? How does that fare with you? Does this make sense? How are we doing so far? So literally putting questions out there that let people respond to in an emotionally intelligent dialogue, that helps as well. All right, so once you've grounded and centered yourself, and again, that's before you sign on, we're going to move to a third strategy. And the third strategy starts to bridge the world between, okay, this is right before I sign on and as I just start the interaction. And the third strategy is you want to focus and clarify. Actors always need to make sure that they're focused, they're ready for what's going to come up, and they want to clarify what's needed ahead. What is this scene going to be about? What are the expectations? Am I ready for this? Focusing and clarifying, what I offer you around that is you want to eliminate distractions, focus and prepare, and level set abilities. So eliminate distractions. We talked about this a little bit before, but here's where I want to really remind you. That means before you sign on, before you open the Zoom link, before you turn on that camera, turn off your email, put the phone down, silence it, turn it off. If there are any other windows on the computer open or other apps open, turn them off. It's too easy and too distracting, especially if right now my energy is engaged leading the meeting. If I was just attending this meeting, it'd be very distracting and it would be very easy for me to open email. And what happens when you do that, as Laura mentioned before, we forget that we're on camera. And as we start looking at an email, we start doing things that we shouldn't really be doing while we're on camera that people really don't want to see. So make sure that you don't tempt yourself with distractions, eliminate them, keep everything closed except your camera and the Zoom meeting. Laura, is there anything else you do that you can remind people of that maybe I'm forgetting with Leopard when they're at a meeting to keep distractions minimal?
To keep distractions at a minimum. I think it's just important to remember, I mean, we would have a lot of meetings where we didn't use video cameras, and I'm sure it's true for you. You're on a phone call. You behave differently during a phone call than you do during a Zoom meeting. So you can see attention wander, you can see them doing other things on their desk, and then you ask them a question and they come back because they've just totally forgotten that they're on camera.
Right.
And when the minute that we all went out, it's been almost a month now that we've been working from home, all our meetings have been on camera, which has been great because you can see people drift and you can bring them back. So it's important to remember when you do have long meetings, people's attentions will drift. So I think it's great what Victor said about checking in with people, having them, like he did to us today, type something into chat. How do you feel about that? What's your response to that? There is, you can put things in here like a poll. You can take a poll of the people on the phones and on the Zoom meeting so they can respond. There are things that you can do like that, but really, seeing those faces and watching their attention wander while you speak to them is you can help reel them back in. Yeah.
Thank you.
And you can also see what they're feeling. You can see if they're stressed. You can, unlike a phone call where you're talking away and then finally you say, oh, is this a bad time? Because you hear something, you can see it immediately in their face when something's going on. And you can say, is this still a good time for you? Do I need to reschedule this meeting? Everyone has a lot of stuff going on right now. And you can just tell by their visual demeanor, if this is a good time or not. So you have to be aware that while you have a meeting scheduled, things might have changed on their end and they might need to pick a better time where they can be more attentive to what you're talking about. And that's that emotional intelligence too. You can look at someone and understand something's not right there. Let me propose a better time so things might be, better in their life when we meet a few minutes from now or the next day.
Yeah, very true. Thank you. And people are really responsive and thankful for that. They're grateful. Because that's the other thing about this work is it takes a lot to go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting virtually. It does in a day, it does anyway, but because the virtual requires a different energy from us, it can exhaust us quickly and in a very different way. So when you give people time back, that's a wonderful gift if you can do that. So that's great.
Yeah. I think it does take more energy to do these video meetings than, non-video. It really does. Because you're on.
You are.
And you have to be on and you have to feel on. And that's just a different level of commitment to that meeting.
It is. No, it completely is. There's a reason that even though days are long on a movie set or a TV set, there's a lot of downtime while they're adjusting lighting and sets and technology. Because actors will also need that because it can be draining to have to do this in a medium. And this is even worse because we're not even working with somebody else on a set where we're reacting off of their energy and the camera's picking it up. Everything's going, it's like a monologue delivered to the camera. So that really might feel flat for people.
Right.
So the best you can do is if you give yourself as minimal distractions as possible, as few as possible. That helps your focus to be right on the camera.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We did have a question come in about where to look on the screen. So if you could unshare for just a moment, I'll share my screen, and I took a picture to kind of show what I'm doing here. Okay.
Sorry, let me stop sharing.
Wait, I think I can just take it. Let's see here. Okay. So I took a picture of my Zoom screen while we were talking a minute ago. You don't have to have your Zoom screen like full screen. You can say, take it out of full screen. And what I do is make sure that my pictures of my people are up on top. And then I take those pictures and I put them close to where my camera is. And then as I'm looking I can see Victor, but my eyes are also lifted to that camera. And I'm on a Mac, so all of my controls are in a little different spot. But my video and audio is at the bottom. But this is where you would change. You can take your pictures and put them on the side, but I think it's good to keep them on top.
I agree. Yeah. That's the best place, because then you're close right to the camera. The other thing that I suggest is if you, to look at the camera as much as possible, of course, make eye contact when other people are speaking, because that's what it looks like, is eye contact, especially when you're speaking. If you have to look down to read a chat or you want to read responses, you can just let people know, I'm going to break eye contact for a moment. I want to read this. Oftentimes when I'm putting people in breakout rooms, it takes my focus away, so I do that. And once you say that, people understand.
They do.
Yeah.
And that is a feature of Zoom where you can do breakouts. So you're in one meeting, but a group can go into another chat room in Zoom. So that's something you can do. We did have a question earlier about Zoom security. So Zoom was a small company with 20 million users. Now there's 200 million, and they did find some security flaws in Zoom. So we've used Zoom for a long time. We've never had a problem with it, but we did institute you must use a password for all of your meetings moving forward. So all of our meetings, all of our company-wide meetings all have a password assigned to them. So you not only need the number, but you need the password. But you can use, WebEx. WebEx is a lot more expensive than Zoom. Zoom offers that free option to, for people that don't want to spend that money right now. But there are some other alternatives. If you use Microsoft 365, Teams also has a way that you can video chat, but that's really, I think, within people within your own company. It's not where you could, call a candidate in on Teams and have a video chat with him. But there are some other options out there. But I would suggest using the password protection if you're going to use Zoom.
Great idea. Yeah. Yeah, there are others. I think Zoom is probably is user-friendly as well.
Yeah.
I've done Adobe Connect and Google Hangouts, and they're just a little bit different again. So they all have their pluses and minuses, but I feel like Zoom is just the easiest to just get on, try it, and get used to really quickly. So
you're absolutely right. That's why we chose Zoom. It was easier to get people to join a meeting than any other system.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, nearly everybody's using Zoom now. I mean, major organizations, I've just worked with Ogilvy, they're all using Zoom. So it's a great platform to use.
It is. It is.
All right, I'm going to go back to share my screen and just get the slide back up. Okay. All right. So please, the other thing I want to mention is please remind me again. So Laura, thank you, and Charisse. My focus again is on the camera and speaking about the slides and the strategies. If I miss a question in chat, please do remind me or mention it so that I can answer. I want to make sure I take care of people's needs as well. So calling my attention to that is great. Strategy number 3, this is again just before you sign on, just before you're ready to launch the meeting, and as you launch the meeting to begin with, you want to focus and clarify. So eliminate distractions I've talked about. Next, you want to focus and prepare. And focus and prepare means you want to do that for yourself, and you want to also do that for the cast and crew around you. Now, like on a movie set, they're all ready. They know what has to be done. So when they say rolling, the camera crew, the sound crew, everybody, whether it's a script girl or a props person, they know what they need to do to give that scene being filmed attention and quiet. You may have to get your family aside and have a little talking to them, and maybe take your dog aside and say, you know, this is not the time to bark at the mailman, whatever that means. I don't know if that works with you, with Annie, Laura, but you know, it's probably not. But you want to make sure that, again, they know that if, especially, and here's another thing you want to think about in preparation, think about your schedule for the week. When you focus and prepare, think about what's coming up. Where are those really peak high moments where you're speaking to high-end clients, top of the chain leadership, really important executive external clients? Those are the places where you want to make sure that you are showing up at your best so you can plan well around it. You want to make sure that you can get your family maybe outside of the apartment to go take a walk outside 6 feet apart if it's, you know, if it's okay. And just let them know now is not the time to run through the room in their underwear or to scream from the next room so we don't hear, it's mine, I had it first. It's just not going to enhance your presence. So prepare the people around you. Once you're signed on, once you actually launch the meeting, then you want to make sure you can level set abilities. And that's simply taking people through a little tech tour that I did early on. Especially if you're
Yeah. Yeah, well, it looks like we've lost Victor. So this was something that we were going to mention, making sure that your internet is up and running properly. But the point he was about to make was know your program. So when your guests come on and they say, oh, I don't know how to do this, or they can't get their audio turned on, that you have a way to walk them through it and help them through it. In the chat window, you can tell them, you know, how to unmute themselves. If you can also mute and unmute them, but if they've actually muted their phone or something, you're not going to be able to unmute them. So just take a technical walkthrough for yourself and know how to guide somebody else into your meeting. Because believe me, there are technical difficulties in every meeting, as we see. So you have to be able to help them when they have questions. So does anybody have any questions from today? I know, I'm sorry that we lost Victor too, but hopefully he can get back in shortly. Any questions from today? I know you're all beautiful on Zoom, and I'm sure you're going to be doing a terrific job doing in this brand new world, in this video medium, you know, all of your job instead of those in-person connections and meetings. So thanks for joining, everybody, and we'll get this out as a recording so people can join and look at it in your office if you found it valuable. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, and good luck Zooming out there. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
hello. Here we go.
Yes.
So sorry, my apologies. I need to be rehosted to start my video, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I think we called it, so
Did we?
almost all have dropped off. But I think I finished it up for you. So,
Okay.
but they appreciate it. They're sending lots of thank you. We'll get our recording together and send it out to the folks that couldn't make it.
Okay. Sorry.
That's all right.